outside our window, like a monkey, like a naked monkey, like naked.
Okay, hello.
Hi.
How's everybody doing today? Well, so this is the sixth week of the course, meaning that this is the halfway point. You're halfway through. Um, and after we go over the homework, what we're going to do today is this is a day I like to designate as a lab day, where we basically just um, pick up the go over any loose ends that you might still be stuck on. Just sort of take another pass at anything that you want to go over again. And also, there are a couple other things that sort of didn't really fit into other lessons that I plan to show you today. We're going to look at how to do. We're going to look at something called sticky positioning, which allows you to sort of glue things to the top of the browser window as you scroll. And we're also going to look at video and audio elements, how to incorporate media other than images into a web page. But first, let's go over your assignments. It looks like I only received 4. If you haven't submitted your assignment, can you please send me that invite now? And in future, please remember to do that before class time starts. But we'll start with the ones we've got. So we will start with Gabriela. So project, we'll show it.
Yeah, so I just I did the transition on the title.
Mm-hmm.
I did then the animation for the picture. So it's supposed to like change the grayscale.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it happening very slowly. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty slow.
Nice. Let's look at let's just check your CSS. Okay. This is looking good. I personally like to put a line after each rule declaration like that, but that's just a matter of personal preference. I find that more readable. If this is readable to you, then it's certainly not incorrect. Just total matter of preference.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Let's look at, yep. And you're just doing, yep, from filter none to
Grayscale, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the
Oh yeah, the background color transition from orange to, was it brown?
yeah. Okay. Yeah. One thing I would suggest doing just to keep is to keep I would put the hover, like the this I would put this rule right here, just group it with the selector, group it with the rule that it's a modified state of.
Yeah.
It's just a little easier to sort of, okay, if I have my base state here and then my hover state is right next to it.
Right.
That's just a little more organized. But other than that, yeah, nicely done. This looks good.
Cool.
Okay. So then I think this is Daphne. Yep. Okay. Okay. So that's the animated one. It just continues. Okay, cool. So let's look at your style sheet. Okay. Yeah, this looks good. I would just your indentation is a little off here. I would say I would want you to sort of like make sure to kind of have you want your rules to sort of start and end on the same line, and then you or the same column, so that you can easily just at a glance see, okay, this rule starts here and ends here, and starts here and ends here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But other than that, that's just you know, that's just a little bit of a formatting tip. But other than that, this is looking okay. Actually, one thing I see, so the timing function isn't where you put how long you want the duration to be.
Yeah, I had trouble with that. I didn't know.
Mhm.
I
So
didn't quite have time to figure it out.
sure. So if you want that transition to happen over a longer period of time,
Mm.
the property you use is let's just pull the inspector up. Or I guess we'll do okay. You can also, another tip is that if you click this little colon hover button here, you can toggle the hover state and just like and inspect it that way. But so see how this is grayed out
Yeah.
or line through. So what I think you're looking for is transition duration,
Yes.
10 seconds. And then, but also watch what's going to happen here. See how it takes 10 seconds to expand all the way out to 200? Watch what happens when I mouse off of it. See how it pops right back?
Yeah, that's happening with the one below it too. Like I
Mhm.
wanted to sort of like, you know, rock
So
like a ship. But
right. Okay. Well, so the one below is in the animation, so we can approach that in a second. But what I was going to get to is that when you're setting up your transitions, you want to, like, the thing is you've put this rule in the hover state, so it only applies when the hover state becomes active. So if you want it to apply when the hover state is both activated and deactivated, you need to write it in the base state, not the hover state. So as in meaning,
wouldn't that then apply to both of the divs?
oh, yes, it would. So, well, but you don't have a transition on the other one. But yeah, you're right, it would. So we do this. And now so now it takes 10 seconds to stretch all the way out. And it takes 10 seconds when I mouse off. Let's bring this down to a slightly quicker time. The difference between transition duration and transition timing function is that transition duration is how long it should take, whereas the timing function is the shape of over time of the animation. So if I do transition timing function, that's things like ease in, out. For example, if I add that, see how it moves a little faster towards the middle? Like, and it'll show you this this is what the timing functions give you. Is it lets you define the curve of the over time of the speed. If you leave this out, it'll default to linear, where it's just completely even over the course of the animation. But this lets you get pretty, pretty complicated. If you do the cubic Bezier thing, you have to write in coordinate values, I believe. But see what that does. Don't know. Okay. But at any rate, that's the difference between the timing function and the duration. Duration is literally just how long should it take, and timing function lets you shape it a little bit. See the difference? Okay, so then let's take a look at, you wanted the animation to sort of go back and forth as well, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So actually, let's do it in the inspector here. So that is it's just a question of adding and let's make this happen a little quicker too. So this is another see, this is the animation direction property. If you tell it to alternate, it'll go back and forth like that. If you tell it reverse, it'll start from it'll run this, it'll invert the order of the keyframes that you defined. So see, it's starting from a negative 10-degree rotation and going to a 10-degree rotation as when I add that reverse. I can also do alternate reverse, where it's starting from, and now it's going back and forth, but it's starting from but the order of the keyframes is still reversed. So that's a little distinct from the visual effect is similar, but it's distinct from the way that transitions work. Okay, but looks good to me other than that. So let me just add that in for you. And okay, nicely done. So Sarah,
Yes.
we'll do yours next. Okay. Oh, nice. That's from, this is from a book, right?
Yeah. Angelina Ballerina.
Right. Yeah, I remember that one. Okay.
Is my page glitching?
Okay, so what's happening is let's take a look at this. What it has to do with is you're moving things around the page and it's like affecting the size and position of stuff. And so you see the scroll bars kind of popping in and out. That's just because sort of things are kind of sliding around and affecting. So but let's look at you. Okay. So I don't think this is technically breaking anything, but it's not good to just leave the body, like leave that sort of ID equals.
Oh, yeah. I think I was like trying to do something and I forgot to delete it.
Okay. Yeah. It's just not good to leave. Just remember to, like, if you're not going to use an attribute, just take it out
Mhm.
completely. It's not good to
Okay.
leave sort of half finished things in there.
Yeah.
But so let's look. Okay. Right. Okay. So I'll tell you why you're getting that. I tell you why you're getting that that sort of glitching effect.
Mm-hmm.
If you used because you're transitioning the actual position of the you're trans what you're moving around here in your keyframes is the actual left pixel value, and you're moving it on and off the page, and every time it moves off the page you get like a horizontal scroll bar
Okay.
appearing. So I would suggest using a using a transform instead to do both, so that you could do just to use like the translate X transformation. So let's see. And remember that you can achieve multiple, you can chain multiple transformations together like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see if this does now.
Oh.
Okay. So it does the spin right in the middle. But if we do the
Oh.
and see how, but so it's you know, so it needs a little bit of tweaking yet, but see how it's not you're not getting that horizontal scroll bar showing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the nice things about transforms is that again, this isn't affecting the position this isn't affecting the flow of the document when you apply a transition. As far as the document is concerned, it's ignoring the movement of this element.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Why is the vertical scroll bar still showing up?
Let's take a look. It probably just has to do with the size of
Oh,
yeah, I'll tell you exactly what it is. So you have the image in here, and then you're moving this whole div around.
yeah.
But remember that in its base form, the div takes up the full width of the page. So every time it rotates,
It's moving the page.
So what we can do to get around that, I have a feeling that if we don't want it to do that, all we have to do now it only takes up as much width as the content inside of it. Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah, it also looked like sort of, did you mean to put a transition in on this hover effect?
Yeah. Wasn't
Okay.
that the assignment? Or
Yes, but you didn't include the transition. You have two different background colors, but you don't have you didn't apply a transition to between them.
Oh, I thought the transition was the change in background color.
No, the transition allows you to animate the change in background color. So so you have two background colors here, right? You have this this is your base state of same background color as the page.
Yeah.
And then you have your modified state of the orange background color.
Mhm.
And so as is, you don't have a transition in here. So it just happens instantaneously. But if you
Oh.
want to make this, if you want to make that change in background color happen over time, what you do and now
Oh.
Right. So that's what a transition allows you to do, is take a normal, like sort of, you know, applying a hover state is is just a standard state change. There's no built-in transition there.
Uh-huh.
But when you specifically invoke this rule, it
Mhm.
allows you to define define how much time that should take.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Otherwise, looking good.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm. So, cool.
Oh, I actually had a question.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
in
what's
the
up?
rotate like function,
Mhm.
is it just like coded in there that like after 50%, it just automatically rotates back?
Okay, so you mean in your keyframes?
Yes.
Yes, that's how it's written here, is you have, so what you actually have happening here, actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because we could actually eliminate a bunch of this.
Oh.
Because what you've got is you've got a starting point, a middle point, you've got a starting point, an end point, or you've got a starting point, a middle point, an end point, then back to the middle, then back to the starting point, right? You could just use that alternate direction function and only write these three keyframes. So we could just write this as, instead of explicitly telling it, instead of explicitly defining keyframe rules to make it roll back the way it came,
Mhm.
we can just do this. And then, so what this is going to do, let's look at it first. It's going to move, it's just going to move
What?
right. And then,
Oh.
but
Wait.
then if we wanted to roll backward, we just tell it to alternate. And now,
Oh. But
mhm.
did it roll back at 75% because of the translate X, or was it just the rotate?
Let's look at the rules you've written. Okay, so this is what you'd written. So okay, so these are the translate X and the rotate are doing two slightly different things. If we let's do this. If we let me just remove the animation from this for a second. So if I apply, so the rotation is causing the spin and the translate is causing the motion left and right. So if I do, and then so that's all that does is the rotation. And I can keep that spinning, as long as I like. I'm just doing that holding down the shift key and the arrow key on my keyboard, just changing that value manually. The translate X handles the motion left right.
Oh.
So what your animation is doing is combining those two things together. Does that answer your question?
So is it returning to its original position because
Yeah, because I
of
set this back.
translate X?
You've started it from so as your animation is, you've got just the last keyframe is exactly the same as the first keyframe, right? Minus 500 pixel translation.
Yeah.
So right. So you've so yes, you're moving the natural position of, if I turn the animation off, the natural position that you have defined for this of top 5M, right 5M. You are what the translate rule is doing is just offsetting from that.
Oh, okay.
So without the translate X rule, it's going to be 5 times 16, 80 pixels and 80 pixels from, and your relative position. So it's going to be 80 pixels from the next thing above it, and it's going to be 80 pixels from the left of the page. Assuming that we have that the base font size is 16 pixels, which it should. Oh, it's 20. Okay. So it's not. So so then M is calculating to a different value. I was assuming a base font size of 16 pixels, but that's not what we're working with here. But either way, the natural resting position of this of the image is here, at these coordinates.
Yeah.
And when you apply a transformation, you offset it for, if I put this at 0, there's no change, right?
Yeah.
But then that's 100 pixels to the left of the position you defined. And that's 100 pixels to the right of the position you defined. But the base state of the position, the base position that you defined is written here, is this. So animation aside, this is where it's starting from and ending up at.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And then Henrika. Okay. Changing color and changing, are you changing the font size directly, or is that a a transform? Are you scaling it, or is it a direct change to the font size property?
It's a change of the font size.
Cool. Okay.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, can I add something that it doesn't take so long when the animation loops until the text comes in again, that it's more continuous and loops faster? I couldn't figure that out.
Sure. Let's take a look. So let's. Okay. So so it's a div. All right. Let's try this. Let's just, I'm going to. All right. So. Aha, absolute position, 300 pixels from the bottom. Let's see if this, I don't think that's going to make a difference here. Nope, it's the same size as it was. Okay. Right, because absolute position. Okay. So let's look at the. Okay. So I think that the reason it's taking such a long time here is because you're moving it so far off the page. Like you're moving it from, like, the full width of the page here is here, I'll just like detach
Yeah,
this for a second.
how can I know that? Because I just typed in a random number until I couldn't see it anymore.
Sure. So one thing you can do here, let me just put this back in. So if you click this this sort of three button icon, this three dot icon here, and click, and you can take this set of tools and attach it to either the bottom or so here, now you can see that the whole window is 1200 pixels wide in this case.
Okay.
If I make this full screen, the whole window is 1792. But so one thing we could try doing, let me rather than using, but so you don't necessarily know how big the window is going to be for whoever's looking at this page, right?
Yeah.
So this is a perfect place to use a relative unit of measure rather than a fixed unit of measure. So instead of trying to sort of like use a pixel value, you could use the VW, which gives you a percentage which gives you a percentage of the width of the viewport.
What does VW stand for?
Viewport width.
Okay.
There's also VH, which stands for viewport height.
Okay.
And now okay, so minus 100 viewport is so we can still tweak it. Let's put it to 10. Let's go to 50. Right, so now that moves a little faster.
Yeah, okay.
Let's also look at your part of it is your the ease in out timing function is
Mhm.
going to make it move slower at the beginning and slower at the end and speed up in the middle.
Yeah, but I thought that is taking away from the 10 seconds.
No, it still
it
takes
adds up.
it's
Or how
it
does it?
okay. Oh, so this is also quite not quite right. It's rather so transition is a separate function from you're using transition properly here, but it doesn't affect keyframe animations. It only affects things
Oh.
on state change. So
Right.
so if you're trying to apply an ease in out timing function to this animation, what you want to use is you want to use animation timing function.
Okay.
And then that only takes that doesn't you only put the name of the timing function. You've already you don't put a seconds value in here because you've already defined that here in animation duration.
Okay.
So now you can see that it's doing what you expect. Okay. So these,
And I also wanted to add like a fade in, like to animate the opacity while it's sliding in.
oh
But
sure.
when that worked on its own, but when I added the movement, it stopped working.
Right.
Like
So
somehow that's why I graded out.
so what you can do is just apply the is just affect multiple properties in your
Oh, okay.
and so now it's going to be from opacity 0 to opacity 100%.
Okay.
And you can mix and match too. We could do this. We could do you can put percentage values between from and to. And now what we should get. Yep. Okay. So now what we're going to get is something that fades in, and then as it gets to the right end of the page, fades out again.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And then we got one from Chloe.
Yes, I had some issues with mine.
That's okay.
I think I was confused with the indentation, or like more like the order of how things go in the CSS file.
Okay.
And also for some reason, I know we did this last week, but like I couldn't center the Chloe's portfolio site bit.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at all of that.
Okay. And I
so-
wanted to shorten the duration of where there's just like black blank space during the slide in.
Okay. So this is putting height 100%, width 100% on the body is kind of redundant, actually.
Okay.
And the other thing is that if you add overflow hidden, nothing scrolls.
Yeah, because I put that in there because it was just a black page, so that I didn't want to like slide up and down, and then I wanted the Chloe's portfolio, that part, to just stay there.
Okay. Well, okay. Again, the reason it was sliding up and down, that property that you're animating is the margin property.
Right.
if the, okay, another thing here is that if you're going from width to 100% to width 100%, there's no
Mhm.
change happening there. So why
Okay.
not just put why bother animating it at all if it's not changing? You see
Right.
what I mean? Now the other thing you can do is that rather than so the reason you were getting those scrolling effects is that you're animating the margin, what the property that you're changing is the margins rather than the and if you want to move things around the page without affecting the positioning of other things on the page,
Mhm.
that's a perfect opportunity to use a transform instead. So you could do this
Okay.
as and so now
Okay.
so now if I turn that that overflow hidden off,
Mhm.
okay, so it is still, there's still some horizontal movement happening. Oh, H1 is block display by default. So okay. So now this you were having trouble centering.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, the box. Okay. So the issue is that you have text align center defined at the body
Mhm.
level, and that is passing down all the way to here. You can see that the text is aligned inside this box,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the box itself, you've set a fixed width of 300 of 300 pixels.
Right.
There's a quick trick to get this to move to the center of the to center objects with a fixed width.
Okay.
You can use, and you can there's you can exploit the auto margin in order to do that. So you can type if I type margin
Mhm.
and I type 0, 0 on its own is going to set the margin at 0 pixels for all 4 sides of the element.
Mhm.
But if I put 2 values here, the first one is the margin for the top and bottom, and the second is the margin for the left and right. So if I
Mhm.
add auto,
Mhm.
that snaps it. See how that snapped it to the center?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what that's doing is it's just filling in that's just filling in space to use them automatically filling in margin space on either side of this, and that moves the div into the center.
Okay.
You understand
So
how
if
that's
I
sorry.
put like 2 instead of 0, that would make the box larger, or what would that do?
No, remember how the box model works is that margin let's take a look at the so remember this is how the box model is that the we have 300 by 20 pixels worth of content space inside.
Yep.
Then we have no padding.
Uh-huh.
We don't have a border, And then and then we have two.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you did 2 and 0, or if you did 2 auto, what you would end up with is 2 pixels. Here, I'll do 20 just to make it bigger.
Yeah.
So what you're getting 20 pixels of margin on the top and on the bottom, and automatic margin on the left and right.
Okay, got it. And then is there such thing as like auto?
Yeah, you can do that. You can just do auto. Actually, you can just do, if you're going to set it to be the same top, bottom, left, and right, you can just use one word.
One. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do understand how this is distinct from text align center, right? And
Yeah.
sort of, okay, cool. Now the only other thing I notice is that you you have a hover state here, but you're not transitioning the value. So it happens. So the change when you go into the when you roll over happens instantaneously.
Yeah.
What I was hoping to see was, or if I do this. And change the color to oh, right. Yeah, you have the so now what's going to happen here is that that change in background color from white to yellow is going to take place over the course of 3 seconds.
Okay.
We're also go, and you'll see it fade between white and yellow. You'll also see, instead of no border, this 2 pixel solid red border will also fade in over the course of 3 seconds. So, oh, and let me add the oh, right. Okay, let me do something here. Why is it pushing the, oh. I wonder why it's, all right, well, let's just take the. Oh. Okay. I think it's the fixed height that's wow, that's okay. So there's not a hover state for the I wonder why. Oh, I wonder why it gets so much bigger when it hovers. That's okay. Well, either way, I don't know why that was happening, but so you see the difference when you add this transition property of how it makes that change in the background color happen over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to get out of the that's an easy way to animate a change just on, like, you know, if you want something to change on rollover, you can easily animate it without writing out keyframes. That's the whole, that's the takeaway here.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Cool.
you.
Yep. Okay. So, okay, that's all the assignment, that's all the submissions I have. So, let's do this. Let me just start from a new, like just start from this. From this base project. And just start here. So let's start. Let's start with media, with video and audio. And these are simple enough that I don't really have slides prepared. So this will be all code demo. Sorry, this should be an H2. So let me real quick.
People with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension. But no, by all means, go ahead, skip the ad, save a few seconds.
I have to do a lot of reading for my job.
Sorry about that. I'm pulling a video off YouTube to upload here, and it played an ad. My bad. So copy. Now let me just show you also the difference between sort of like, as long as I have a YouTube video pulled up, let me just show you sort of like the difference between what's involved in, say, just embedding a YouTube video versus uploading one of your own. So just a second here. Okay, so so if I want to so if I want to include a video in my web page, easy thing to do is just go to YouTube and copy the embed control. So if I hit the copy button or copy the embed code. So let's look at what that pastes in here. If I go to my page, you can see that this is an embedded YouTube video player. And it does what we expect. This is what this is actually doing is embedding another website within our web page. So if we inspect this, there's a whole, you see how that says document? And so now we see like a document, a doc type declaration and an HTML tag and a head and a body. This is an entire other web page hosted at google.com, hosted at youtube.com that has been embedded in a frame. That's what the iframe element does, is it embeds documents from, it embeds other web pages within your web page. I don't really touch on this element outside the context of embedding YouTube videos, because it's really, it used to be more ubiquitous in setting up kind of like tile-based layouts in a web page, but it's a lot less common now, outside of applications like this. But so other than it, but so say I have, you know, a video file of my own that I want to add to this, that I want to add to this page. Just a second. Okay, so I'm going to drag in a video file. I'm going to copy this. And now I want my own, I'm going to set up my own video player instead of the YouTube embedded one. And this is all it takes. The tag's name is video, and it just takes a source attribute like the image attribute does. You'll notice though that this one, that unlike image, so the image attribute is like this, right? It's not, it's a single line tag. It doesn't have an end tag. This one does. The implication being that there are child elements that you can include in this, which is true. If we had multiple formats of this video, say we had it in MP4 and .mov and you know, and other formats, we could add those inside here as other sources. So let me just pull this up. So here's the documentation for this on MDN. Notice how what this allows you to do is if you have multiple copies of the same video, you can include multiple copies as fallback so that the most optimized one shows up. But in this case, I'm just doing it super simple. And you can see, here's my video. If I right click, but you'll notice the elements here, but I can't do anything with it, right? In order to set up in order to add the playback controls, I have to specify that I want those controls visible as a read-only attribute on the video element. Now I have a start button. If I want this to be muted by default, I can just add the word muted, and now notice that it starts out muted. I can also set this to, if I want this to start playing as soon as the page loads, I can add the autoplay attribute, and now it starts playing as soon as the page loads. I can also, there are a bunch of attributes that I can set on here. I can tell it to loop. it's just loop. And now, skip to the end and automatically jumps back to the beginning and starts again. The videos as so this is a good way to work with a video that's like embedded in a page, where it's sort of a feature of the page. It's where it's like featured content in a page that you want to that you're playing, that you just want to watch as you would, the same way you would a YouTube embed. If you want video as the background of a page, let's say, let's just find something. Something really short. Doesn't really matter what. Okay, sure. Cool. So I'm going to download this. I'm using a command line app to download videos, by the way, which is why you can't see it. So while that downloads, what we're going to set up here is we're going to make this video of this little just sort of 10-second looping video the background of our page. That's an effect that we've seen a few times. Okay, so okay. Actually, okay. So I'm going to start by placing a video at the top of as the first element in the page. I'm going to give it a class background video. I'm going to have it muted. It's going to autoplay, and it's going to loop. And the source is that. Now, by default, that's just going to take up space. It's going to displace things. So in order to make this fit, let's do a few things. Let's start. Let's start by removing it from the flow of the document. How do we do that? Position, we either do position absolute or position fixed. Let's do position fixed here because we'll make everything scroll behind it. Let's make the width Let's do this. Minimum width 100 VH and minimum height. All right. So now it's not moving as we scroll around, but it's still on top of stuff, right? We can't see anything. All of this stuff is underneath it. So remember the demonstration with the stack of cards. How do we move things around in the 3D order of the page? We use the Z index property. If I pull that to -1, now everything is behind it. So this is looking good. This is close to what we want. There are only a couple things I want to add. Think about what happens when you play a video on your smartphone and how it pops open into that sort of player that takes up the full screen of the phone. When we're using a video as the background of our page, we want to turn that off. We want to disable that. So that's another attribute that we add here, which is plays inline. That way, when reviewing on when reviewing on smartphones, we're not it won't try and pop this open in a separate video player. It'll keep it in the background. Or say we're trying to view on a tablet or something like that. It'll keep it in the background and keep it in line in the page instead of popping it open as in a player. And there's only one other thing I want to add on this, which is I don't want users to be able to, I see how if I right click, I can get to the show controls, loop, etc. I want to turn that off. And there's a very simple and easy way to do that through CSS. This will work on any element. This is really handy for, say, disabling buttons on forms and things like that. If you have an element and that by default has mouse interactions and you want to turn them off, pointer event, you can do that with a CSS rule, pointer events none. Now I can't get to that. I can't get to the I can't right click and loop like stop the video from looping in it or anything like that. I can also, if I turn that on for this, if I set pointer events none, notice how the controls don't come up anymore, and notice how I can't stop how I can't do anything. This just disables all mouse actions. So that's a really powerful rule. Now, okay, so this is video. Audio works in a very similar way. I just so happen to already, let's delete this one. And let's delete this. I happen to have a little bit of sound in here already. Now, in exactly this, the audio element looks almost exactly the same, or syntactically is very, very, very similar to the video element. I can just do audio. I scroll down. If I turn the controls off on this, let's set it to autoplay. Notice that with controls off, oh yeah, I don't know if you can hear sound anymore. Let me turn that back on. So with the controls attribute turned off and the autoplay attribute turned on, there's not really a way to disable the to turn this off without without going in and inspecting the code or just muting the whole browser window. But say you want to say you want to customize the appearance of this. That can be done. Let's see there. Yeah, you can style it. There are two ways you could do this. You could either directly style this set of controls using, okay, this is great. This actually ties into something that that I wanted to bring up, which are what we call vendor prefixes. Certain rules in, especially as you keep sort of digging in deeper with CSS, you'll see certain rules that have this dash WebKit media control, you know, or dash MOZ or something like that. That's what's called a vendor prefix. And what that means is that the there hasn't been a standardized rule that applies in every single browser. So you or at least that one hadn't been created yet at the time of implementing the solution that you're looking at. So here, let's just try directly styling this thing a little bit. Let's do let's do it in what was that? WebKit media controls panel. Let's just see if we can make the background. Okay. Did I write that correctly? Okay. So, all right. So there is a way there is a way to directly directly affect the style of the player itself, but it's a little but it's not supported. It doesn't seem to be supported in this browser, which is Google Chrome. So the other way to do it is to simply leave the, remember how this didn't show up at all when it was when we didn't include the controls attribute? I can put other elements in the page. And I can use JavaScript to directly hook into this and control playback and control playback and volume and all the things that I would need to. So if I go here and go down to, I just need to and let me just when we learn JavaScript, we're going to be using this which we're going to start next week. We're going to use a library called jQuery that makes it a little simpler to learn from the get-go. So I'm just going to go ahead and include that now. Just so that everything I'm writing will, just so that all the JavaScript I write will look uniform across what I show you in the future. So now let's give this an ID also. And oh, right, I have to do, we'll come back to this in further detail next week. I'll explain exactly what this code does, or like I'll walk you all through it. But just for now, suffice to say, I added these two buttons to the page, and I'm going to hook them up using, I'm going to use JavaScript to hook them up so that they control this audio player so that it can stay invisible and I can manipulate it using my own custom set of controls. see, where are the methods, events? Okay, so oh, right. I forgot to add. So I wrote custom functionality, but I forgot to add it to the page. I forgot to include the JavaScript that I wrote. So and we'll get back to what defer means when we start talking more about JavaScript too. But so now, oh, my pause button isn't working though. Ah, right, because I. Okay, so I had a misnamed ID, but so now I can set up my own custom controls, and I can use JavaScript to control the playback of media events. Now let's do a little bit more. Let's do a couple things here. Let's talk about adding drop shadows to text, because I don't think I talked about that. There are, the rule is called the text shadow rule. And you add the X offset, so the offset to the left, the Y offset, so the offset up and down, the blur radius, and then the color. Oh, you don't use the commas, I don't think. Yep. So now, see how I have a drop shadow? If I crank this value up, see how it gets more blurred? If I crank this value up, it drops further down. I crank this value up and it goes further to the right. Now I can apply more than one I can apply more than one shadow at a time too. If I do now, you can see I can kind of get to I kind of get a like a stroke effect going. And if I keep going, now see how I have kind of a I have a black background around or I have a black border around the letters. And that's actually just 4 drop shadows, but pinned to the 4 sort of like offset and pinned to the 4 corners of the text region. Now let's talk about that. So I'm going to copy this. Let's talk about making let's see. Let's do like a let's get an RGB value here. Okay, 54, 117, 136. Okay. So let's also do this. Let me and let's add oop. So I just want to add just a little bit more stuff to take up space here. Because I want to talk about that sticky positioning that we were that I was talking about. So the effect that I'm going to go for is that these H2 elements are going to glue to the top of the page and then scroll away when the next one comes up, and then that'll stick, and so on and so forth. So it's a nice flashy effect, especially for single page sites that have kind of a bunch of stuff in them. So I'm going to do that just by adding and now what this does is that as soon as this scrolls to this position of 0 pixels from the top, it'll stick and it'll stop moving. So it looks the same now. And see how it sticks, and then this one comes in and it sticks, and this one comes in and it sticks. If I want it to stick further from the top, notice how now there's 10 pixels, how it's stopping 10 pixels from the top of the viewport. You see that? And everything is scrolling up behind it. So looks really impressive, looks really flashy. but actually extremely easy to implement. Okay. So that's the that's all the material I wanted to go over and present to you today that I didn't cover in any previous lessons. Let's take 5 minutes. We'll come back at 8:15, 8:16. And then we'll spend the remainder of the class time. We'll go over what your project proposals are for the final, and we'll just answer any other questions you might have. Okay, so 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. So does anybody have any lingering questions or anything that they'd like to go over once more? Hello? Okay, okay. All right, well, tell you what. I am just going to go down the line of if nobody has if nobody wants to go over anything else, this is your next week we move on to JavaScript. So this is your last chance to get to, unless you want to schedule one-on-one time with me, which, by the way, everyone is open and willing to do that. If you want to schedule one-on-one time with me to go over anything, feel free. Just shoot me an email. My schedule is pretty open. I'm certain I can make time for you. But in the meantime, if everybody seems happy for now.
I actually have one question.
Yeah, what's up?
So do you like memorize these codes? Like, are we expected to, like, do programmers like remember all of these like text shadow or like?
Yeah, but it does, but it's not like, but you know, we also, so there's an old joke about a physicist, a chemist, and an engineer want to determine the size of a blue rubber ball. The physicist takes its weight and its height and calculates it that way. The chemist figures out the chemical makeup of the ball, and the engineer looks it up in his blue rubber ball book. The upshot of this is that yes, you do end up memorizing stuff, but also you always have documentation open in the background. I always am looking, I'm always going back and looking things up as I go. I have memorized a lot of stuff over time, but there's also stuff that I forget all the time. And so, like, yes, I remember how to use, I just remember how to use text shadow off the top of my head, but for a long time I didn't. And I had to look it up every time I needed to use it. And eventually I just memorized it. So yes, it's a lot of stuff, but don't feel, do not feel pressured to commit everything, absolutely everything, to memory the first time around. As long as you get the principles, you can look up what the individual, you can always look up the exact, go back and look up what the exact way to write the rule is, as long as you remember the principle of what you need to do and how to look it up. Especially, the other thing is that these languages change over time. New things get added to HTML and CSS. Things get removed from HTML and CSS. New frameworks and libraries get built on top of HTML and CSS that have their own specific way that they want to write, or that they want to be written. We're not even gonna come close to talking about React.js or Vue.js or things like that. So it's kind of, this is programming is a discipline wherein you've never learned everything there is to learn. It's impossible. I believe that it's kind of an impossible thing to master, because it's just, there's always so much new stuff coming in. And that like, you're never going to be, there's no way to know everything because it's just always changing. That said, yes, I remember a lot of things, but it's more from repetition than from having sat down and committed to memory. This is what this rule is, like it was flashcards for school or something,
Got it. Okay. So is there like a list of like maybe like basic principles that we should like that's good to like memorize, like div ID and like class, like are
Sure.
those like
So, some of this stuff is that's kind of what I would a lot of what I covered in my slide presentations was sort of like what I wanted you to take to heart as the sort of the core principles of the stuff of sort of IDs. For instance, it is important to always remember that IDs are unique identifiers that can only be used once per page, whereas classes can be reused throughout a page and an element can have more than one. Something like that is a principle that something that you should remember. The difference between, say, a div and a span, that both are pretty purely generic elements, but div is for block is a generic block display element, and span is a generic inline display element. Certain things like that are important, like sort of those are pretty important things to remember. As to whether there's a master list of them somewhere, well, I would suggest just you should have access to all of the all of my slideshows for all of my lectures. And there's pretty much everything that I summarize in a bullet point is something that I tried to keep those things pretty. Those are the things I kind of tried to keep general enough to be the main takeaway points.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, if okay, if no one else has any other questions, I guess I'll just go down the list in alphabetical order by last name, and I'll ask everybody to tell me what you plan to do for your final project. So, Sarah, that starts with you again.
Oh, I want to make my like portfolio page, or
Okay.
just like a brand, or I guess my personal brand page.
Cool. Yeah, a personal portfolio is a really good starter project. I used to specify that that's what people do, but I decided to, not everybody had a portfolio of stuff to make, so I decided to open it up and be open to suggestion. But that's a really solid project.
And then in terms of like, if we actually wanted to use this like website as like our portfolio, like would you have to pay like what does Glitch do?
Okay, so Glitch hosts so Glitch does host and serve files, and it provide but if you want to host this on your own domain outside of .glitch.me, I think that they did just roll out, there are certain domains that you can just get straight from Glitch, but you can't get a .com. I think it's just .app and .dev. But if you want to register your own domain and set it up on a web page, what you can do is download all of this code. You can go to Tools, you can click Import and Export, and you can scroll down to the bottom here and hit Download Project, and then that you can upload and deploy to pretty much any web hosting service. And what we can do next, and what we can do on the last day of class is just sort of like a little bonus topic, is I can walk you through how to set this up on GitHub pages. which is an easy way to host it for free. You will have to pay for the domain name, but the
Okay.
hosting can be free.
Got it. Yeah, maybe if we had like, yeah, extra time, could you maybe go over like web hosting slash like, I still don't really understand how this like lives on the internet. Like I was like learning about like ANS or ASN and
AWS,
like domain name servers. I don't know. I was just looking up how like Facebook went down, and I was just really confused.
Yeah. Okay. So tell you what, let me pull up my slides from day one, because I kind of did talk about this, but that was also 6 weeks ago. So computer is running slowly today.
Oh, it also doesn't have to be today. It's just
okay. Sure. All right. Yeah.
thing.
Let's tell you what, we'll go over all the last day of class. After we go over projects, I'll do a brief unit of how to deploy it to the how to deploy it and how to just like make it a real website.
Okay, thank you.
The short answer with respect to how Facebook went down does have to do with, so basically the way that DNS works is that this this set of words is called a URL, Universal Resource Locator. And the last part, the dot whatever .com, whatever .me, etc. This is what's called the domain name. What the DNS domain names, what the domain name service does is it works like the phone book, because by default, a computer doesn't access a server by looking it up by name. It looks it up by number. Which is its IP address. It's a string of usually sort of 2 or 3 digit numbers separated by periods. Like, 192.168.1.1 is a common IP address because that'll always, that's like a local network IP address. But that's the format of an IP address, is 4 numbers separated by periods. And that's what your web browser actually uses to connect to a server. So in the case of the Facebook crash, what happened was essentially the part of the phone book where the name facebook.com, instagram.com, whatsapp.com got connected to a number just got wiped. And so trying to go to facebook.com wouldn't connect to anything, because in order for that domain name to actually work properly, it has to be associated with an IP address, which is numbers. And that's why that all happened. Because computers are more efficient when they deal with numbers than they are with words. And so it's faster to look up a server by a string of numbers than by a string of words. That's why we use the DNS server or the DNS service.
So their IP addresses just got deleted?
Not the IP addresses, the association of the domain name to the IP address. The relationship, the part of the domain name record that connected www.facebook.com to a given IP address, to a number. That's what went down.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So Miriam, what are you planning to do for your final project?
I'm also thinking of doing a portfolio website.
Cool.
Yeah, I would like to have, and this is kind of the big thing that I would like to be able to use in general for my portfolio site, is I write a lot of like content pieces, and I'd like a nice way to organize them and have someone click on it and they can kind of expand it and read it.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the kind of functionality that I would like to put in there.
Okay. Do you have is there an example of similar functionality on a existing website that you can send to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Please do. That goes for everybody, by the way. If you have if there are things on existing websites that you want to replicate on your project, go ahead and send those to me. But that should be,
Okay.
so yeah, we'll talk about, we'll set that up when we get into JavaScript, because what we can do is we can have the content load in on the fly. And actually, since you took this course once already, this might be a thing. This might be a good thing for you to kind of like like a kind of like an extra step for you to work on.
Yeah.
Something. So cool. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Great. Thanks.
Chloe.
So I was thinking like making this, I'm not doing a portfolio site.
Okay.
But mainly like I wanted to practice like putting things in specific like areas on the site. So there's this app that I have on my phone and it's called like I Am, and it's basically like they have like these daily quotes and stuff, and I wanted to place it on the website with like some will be like a slide in similar to what I did for the homework, and then like have the orientation of other quotes like in vertical orientation. So just so I can like practice the Flexbox stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell you what, do a simple mock-up for next week, just so that I can, actually that goes for everybody. If you can make a simple mock-up of what you want your page to look like for next week, that'll be helpful.
Okay. Does it have to be like, can the mock-up be on like Illustrator, or it has to be like, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just whatever is easy. No, yeah. When I say mock-up, I mean like, don't write code. This, you can even,
Okay.
you can write, you can use pencil and paper if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything that's just sort of like a rough layout so that you know what you want it to look like before you start making it.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, also send me a link to that app that you were talking about as well.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks. Henrika.
Yeah, I also want to work on my portfolio site and basically make it more illustrated and animated, more interactive, to have like an animated logo and do what you mentioned in an earlier class, like change the cursor to something more illustrative, or have like little animated vignettes, yeah, to make it a little bit more, I don't know, different, funky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have an existing portfolio site that you're looking to.
Yes,
okay.
I do. I have like a Squarespace site right now.
Okay. Send me that too. What I'd like you to do is rebuild something from scratch, just because I've found that I've worked with students on like trying to customize a Squarespace site, and it's so particular in the way they want you to do it that it kind of just gets into it kind of gets away from what I'm trying to impart with this class.
Yeah.
So
yeah, of course.
So yeah, that's sure. As long like sort of we can treat that as a jumping off point and make something fresh.
Okay. And I have a question. So about like animated vignettes on a website. I know you went over that like last week with that little Mario walk cycle, right? But what if I have like a vignette that is a little bit longer, and it's not just 7 frames, but maybe 60 or 100 until it loops? How do I prepare the PNG file? Do I have to build like such a long file with the different frames in Photoshop, or how is that possible?
That's I wonder if at that point you might not be better off just rendering a video file or something.
And then if I
Um,
want to have a transparent background, would that need to have an alpha channel, or how do
Oh
I do that?
yeah, transparent background in video. Uh, well, let's let me think on that one a bit.
Okay.
Let me know. Let me know in a little more detail. When you submit an email, let me know. Let me know in more detail what you're specifically thinking of for this animation.
Yeah, I can
Um,
also send you some example pages of
Cool.
like people I know who are using stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mai Ting?
Hi, I was thinking about inserting an like a fan page for my in my portfolio sites. I currently already have one on Amazon on Cargo, so I'm thinking having a separate page that's fun, like the one we saw in Neon Cities, and also I may want to change something to my website and make it looks more fun, and like changing the cursor or something. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, just that sounds fine. Yeah, just send me a little bit of send me a rough mock-up of or send me your existing cargo page, and
Okay.
and then just like a rough mock-up of what you want your new page to look like.
Okay, thank you.
Gabriella. Are you there? Okay. All right. Well, Daphne, are you here?
Yes. So I am also thinking of making a portfolio site. I currently have a site that I built in, or added content to in Adobe Portfolio.
Okay.
And it's just a little, a little boring. So I'd like to, do something a little bit more interesting. I just, didn't know how and haven't had the time. So I think this will be a good project
Sure.
to take on.
Okay.
I guess I do have some questions.
Yeah, by all means.
Do you recommend, so we're going to be coding this, like you said, from scratch. Do you recommend like us putting, like, where do you recommend the code living if we have
I'm still gonna have you build it entirely on Glitch, but then if you want to deploy it to a custom domain at the end, we'll talk about how to do that during the last class.
Okay.
But
perfect.
in the meantime, you can start. You can go from Glitch, and you can keep starting from the same starter template that I placed on the team page.
Okay. And I also had a question, like I'm using like on my Adobe Portfolio site, like I have like a lot of the light box where you like click on it and you can like click through images. That's something that we should be able to do on this project.
Yeah,
right?
we're actually that's something that we're gonna go over in a few lessons. We're gonna go over implementing a plugin that does lightbox galleries, and we're gonna talk about how to sort of like build carousel galleries yourself.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
And when you said you wanted to make your page a little more interesting, specifically how so? Like what kind of features are you trying to add?
Well, I think some of it is like photography. And this is not really a development question, but
sure.
I know like a lot of portfolio sites, they sort of have like a preview of like a website or an application that they worked on sort of on the computer screen or on like the mobile screen. Some of them look like they actually just took a photo, but some of them looks like they maybe mocked it up in Photoshop or something, or maybe there's some tools. So I think like that's part of it.
There is a tool, and I'm blanking on what it's called. I'll look that up. I'll make a note to look that up for next week.
And I think like maybe some like just some more like color and maybe some interaction. I think like a lot of other people in the class mentioned. Like I found a site that I do like where she's using kind of like a like a way you can just scroll through the projects. So maybe just something that feels like a little more interactive.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. Again, just a rough mock-up of what you want it to look like, and a couple examples of the kind of features that you're aiming for, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Gabriella, are you back? Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
there you are. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So what are you planning to do for your final project?
I was planning to probably do portfolio, but
Cool.
I'm not sure yet. I might change my mind.
Okay. Try to tell you what. Try to come to a decision by the end of the week if you can, and let me know. Like, so try to let me know by Friday, just because I would like to. I'd like to see. I'd like to see some kind of mock-up and some examples of like features you'd like to replicate by before next Wednesday. So
Okay, gotcha.
I will say a portfolio is a perfectly respectable and very good project to pick. It's a solid choice. So if you are going to deviate from that, just please let me know by the end of the week.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell you what, before we call it a night, folks were talking about custom cursors. Multiple people mentioned custom cursors as a thing they wanted to implement. So let's just go over how to do that real quick. Full disclosure, this is not a thing I remember how to do often, so I am going to look it up. Okay, so, all right, so I've found a page on CSS Tricks, which is a very good, trustable website. So let's, okay, let's do this. Okay, should be pretty easy. Let's just do, oh, I think I have a cursor image on my desktop already. Yeah. Okay, so I have this this cursor image, this purple cursor. And if I'm reading it right, all I need to do, oh yeah, so I would go, I want it to apply to the whole page. So I'm going to go into body. And I'm going to paste the path in, and let me just, okay, comma auto. Now, let's see if it worked. Did not. Let's see if the file is loading. No, the file is not loading. So, well, maybe this just didn't refresh. Nope. Okay. So let's see if we can figure out why. I typed a period instead of a comma. That has the potential to break things. Let's see if this works. Yep, that did it. Okay, so it's actually, I always forget that it's this easy. So this is now, as far as getting an animated cursor to work, let's see how you would do that. Okay. Okay, that's not working. Let's see. Let's just see if I can make. Let's see if we can get a. Oh, I see how he did this. Okay. So, yeah, no, never mind. Well, let's look up the let's look it up in the MDM web docs. Okay. So all right. In order to animate the cursor, it's possible that an animated GIF might do it. Let's see. Let's see if we can find a GIF that. Okay, cool. Here's a good one. Cool. And then it might be too big. But let's try. I've noted one thing I've noticed is that CSS does not like custom cursors if the image is too big. But let's just see what happens here. Yeah, it's not that's not working. Let's let me just do this. Okay. Let me try something here. Let me just see. I'm going to try and how big is that one? What? 250 by 250. Okay. Okay, so now I should have. Okay. So now I have a smaller version of the bird GIF. Let's try that. Hey, okay. So the image is loading, but it's not animating. All right, so close but no cigar. Tell you what, let me research this a bit more in depth, and we'll come back to animated cursors next week. It's entirely possible that animating the cursor might rely on JavaScript anyway. So if it does, I'll just fold it into one of the JavaScript lessons. How's that? Okay. All right. But that's all for today. Remember to send me your proposal, a rough mock-up, and any example sites you want to reference. And I will see you next week when we start going over JavaScript.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good
Right.
night.